everyone, and welcome to another episode of All My Best Friends Are Digital, a podcast about video games and the stories they tell. My name is Caitlin Bailey, and with me I have my co-host, Mark Bigney. Mark, how are you doing?
Well, you can tell me, Caitlin, because within arm's reach of me, I've got 3 PCs and 3 Android gaming devices, so I think I'm pretty well settled in.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. So today we are going to be talking about the games we are currently playing, followed by Mother 3, which was voted on by our patrons for our retro title. And then we're going to be talking about our feature game, I Am Your Beast. And as usual, we will be following everything up by shameless hyping of upcoming titles that we are looking forward to. So Mark, why don't you tell me what you've been playing this week?
So the entire world seems to have been consumed with the release of Silksong. We are not amongst that contingency. We were just recently introduced to Hollow Knight, and we enjoyed it, but it didn't take over our lives the way that it did for many individuals. In these circles here at All My Best Friends Are Digital, we are much more in the Hades camp. To a certain extent, the hype train has been at odd schedules, because for a lot of people, Hades 2 was released a year ago. But for us, it was only released a few number of days ago, because we didn't want to deal with it before it was a real game. So we've been very much consumed with a lot of Hades 2, but I think I can speak for the both of us. Correct me if I'm wrong, Caitlin. We're not quite ready to talk about it yet.
Not yet, but very excited to talk about it very soon.
Absolutely. So the other thing that I've been playing is Fire Emblem Vision Quest. So, I've commented before that there are a whole bunch of fan-made Fire Emblem games. In point of fact, there's a software suite that is designed to allow for fan hacks of Game Boy Advance Fire Emblem games. And since the Game Boy Advance Fire Emblem games, I think, were the apex of the visual appeal of the series, I'm all for that. So, there's a whole bunch of Game Boy Advance fan-made Fire Emblem games. I semi-randomly decided to start with Fire Emblem Vision Quest. So, right off the bat, I was very much appreciative of the fact that the game tells you what difficulty level you should be playing. We talked before about weird elliptical comments, like a series of negging or character evaluations that a whole bunch of games engage in. In Fire Emblem games, it's even more complicated, and Lost Eidolons as a series, which I'll be talking about soon enough with the actual official release of Veil of the Witch, does the same thing, because there's 2 poles, there's 2 parameters. There's the difficulty of the game itself, easy, medium, hard, what are the numbers like, how aggressive is the enemy AI, etc. And then there's the all-important question of, is there permadeath? Because in the Fire Emblem tradition OG, if a unit got killed in a fight and you won the scenario, that unit was gone forever. This has kind of sort of changed a little bit as more and more secondary characters become plot relevant. And so it's not uncommon in contemporary Fire Emblem games, like Three Houses did this all the time, for characters to no longer fight but still be plot relevant. And so they show up in cutscenes. And that takes a lot of the emotional teeth out of it. Back in the day, in the original Fire Emblem games, in the Game Boy version anyway, if a unit died, it was gone for good. It never showed up anymore. People didn't talk about it. They were dead. You got a little epilogue at the end of the game about how everyone was very, very sad that they got murdered because you were incompetent. But past that, they were completely gone. Whether or not you're inclined to play that way is a personal decision. And unlike many video games recently, I'm not going to judge anyone for what difficulty level they select. But the problem is that this completely complicates the issue of what difficulty level to play. Normal difficulty level with permadeath is an entirely different vibe than even hard without permadeath. Because on hard, so long as you survive or do whatever the scenario asks of you, you can lose 10, 12, all your units other than your main character usually, and still move on to the next scenario without a scratch. In this context, it's very important, I think, for these games to give you a sense of what the quote-unquote intended playstyle is, rather than give you a barrage of questions about various gameplay elements, which even as a series veteran, I don't really know how to calibrate things. So, when Fire Emblem Vision Quest was very upfront and said, yeah, we think you should play normal, but normal is probably like hard in other games, and there's no permadeath. I'm like, okay, great, I'm good, I know what to do. I set it to normal and was able to move on my way. So I was that was just great. It got a lot of the guesswork out of things. And I didn't know what to expect, frankly. The writing right off the bat, there were a couple of red flags. There are these 2 nobles that are talking to each other, these 2 brothers, And it sounded not entirely unlike the parody from Brave Fencer Musashi of that advisor who ends everything with eth and doth and everything.
Oh, no.
It just seemed overly flowery and trying too hard.
Uh-huh.
You can make people speak with old-timey cadence and idioms. In fact, Vagrant Story does that to a non-trivial amount. But this just really felt like it was trying too hard, and I was very afraid that was going to persist throughout the game. So far, it hasn't. It was just this one scene between these two nobles, and then the main cast is introduced, and they speak like normal human beings, and the writing feels a lot more natural and much less forced. I don't expect the style to be conversational. I don't want this to sound like a mumblecore film or something, but it felt, as I say, labored. So far, the mission design is great. And there have been great gameplay tweaks as well, because when you're doing a fan translation or when you're doing a fan mode of an existing game, you don't want to mess with what's already there necessarily. But if you're going to make your own game from scratch, by all means, go to town. One example that I very much appreciate is that the Thief class now feels far more relevant in that they gave them a very useful ability. They can move past other enemy characters. And so they have a freedom of movement that is very cool and makes them, despite the fact that they're still fragile and very weak, more battlefield relevant than they were in original Fire Emblem games, which is to say not at all. It's like, oh, I've taken a thief. Their job is to open doors and chests, and that's it.
Yeah.
But the designers of Vision Quest have done a good job of retooling some of the classes and making them feel a little bit more relevant. So I very, very much approve of all that. I also really like discovering all the fan assets that they've either repurposed from elsewhere or have done from the ground up. So there's a lot of really cool sprite work. There's a lot of other graphical flourishes that I don't know where these assets were sourced or if they were done custom, but they definitely don't look like the other official Fire Emblem games. And so I very much appreciate those little touches. Some of the choices are a little strange. Like, the background music for the first stage is a rendition of Ken's theme from Street Fighter 2. And that was a little odd.
Okay.
It's good. I mean, it's good music.
Yeah.
Ken's theme is a banger. I've liked it for 30 years, but it was a strange choice as background music for a Fire Emblem game. But it's very satisfying thus far. I have to say, as a first experience of a fan-made Fire Emblem game, it's satisfying me in all the right ways. And having just finished with Fire Emblem Three Houses, I wanted something to tide me over until the release of Lost Eidolon's Veil of the Witch, and I was still in the mood for more Fire Emblem, and so I figured now's the time to get in, and Vision Quest has been quite good.
Nice.
The project lead goes by Pandan. This was originally released in 2022, although it has been updated since then. We're now on version 3.0. It's received updates even just a few weeks ago. And it's very clearly well supported and a labor of love, and a lot of that comes through, sometimes for ill, like the over-labored writing, and sometimes for the good, just the lovely attention to detail and the willingness to change some of the fundamental gameplay elements and class features that I've been messing around with for a long time, and so it's a really great take on the formula. So I've been having a great time with Fire Emblem Vision Quest, and I don't know how much longer I'll be playing it because there's a lot of content to be had, and there's a lot of different Fire Emblem fan hacks, but this is a pretty good one. I recommend anyone who's curious about it to give it a try.
Nice.
And if you listeners have any experience with any of them and want to suggest any, I am open to suggestions.
Which, Game Boy Advance Fire Emblem is based off of? Or is used as the base?
So the core engine was actually the same used for both official Game Boy Advance Fire Emblem games.
Okay.
And then two games, one simply called Fire Emblem, which was the 7th Fire Emblem in the series. And then there was Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, which more or less used the same system, which was Fire Emblem 8. And generally speaking, the sort of base ROM that you then patch to make the fan version tends to be one of those two. In this case, it was Sacred Stones.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. I love that there's multiple fan-made games. I just think that's really cool. And no one's come down on them for this?
To the best of my understanding, Nintendo has not decided to come after them, so far so good.
Interesting, yeah.
And I really like the fact that a lot of contemporary design work is being done for some of these retro systems. Like Good Boy Galaxy is a Game Boy Advance game that was released relatively recently. There's a whole bunch of people that are still designing for the Genesis. and still releasing things like physical cartridges and or ROMs that you can download. Lots of people are still designing for the Neo Geo. It's great. There's never been a better time to be a retro gamer than now. But of course, that's kind of axiomatically true. As time goes on, there's always more retro games to be had,
Yeah.
independently of how you define retro. So I guess that's not a particularly illuminating statement, but it is great to be a retro gamer right about now. And
Yeah.
Fire Emblem Vision Quest is just but one manifestation of that.
That's amazing. I'm very happy that this exists.
So what have you been playing lately, Caitlin?
So, the only video games I've been playing lately are Hades 2, which I'm not ready to talk about, and Coral Island, where I already said everything I wanted to say. So what I decided to talk about today is building my Lego Game Boy set.
Sweet.
I ordered it, and it finally arrived just a few days ago. And I painstakingly took some time out of Hades 2 in order to build my Lego Game Boy. And it was so fun. Like, I don't know what it is about building little Lego things that is so satisfying, but it just fills me with joy. I feel like I probably said this before, but it activates the same happy centers in my brain as working on jigsaw puzzles, being able to take a whole bunch of pieces and make something complete out of it. And I love it so much. And the Game Boy itself is incredible. There's buttons, and they actually they made it so that you can actually press them in a little bit. There's a select and start button that are made of rubber wheels like you would see on the Lego cars, but they, used it for the select and start buttons on the Game Boy.
Are there rubber membranes under the A and B buttons?
There's got to be something cushy under there because you can push it and it will come back up. I can't remember exactly what ended up under there.
There's got to be something in there. You were the one put it there, Caitlin.
I know. It was a whirlwind, Mark.
Okay, fair enough.
The D-pad has a rubber band underneath it, so it tilts forward and back and left and right. It's not quite as kind of cushy as the A and B button, but it's very cool. And there's a clicky power button at the top, and they have, I forget what the word is used for this, but those images where you tilt it and you can kind of see it quote unquote move.
Lenticular, I believe. Yeah,
lenticular. Yes. You get 3 little screens, Game Boy screens. One from Super Mario Land, I think. One from one of the Zelda games. And then one that's just the Nintendo logo coming down to settle in the center of the screen. It's just so cool. I love it so much. I will definitely share some pictures on our social media. It was a blast.
Can you put cartridges in it?
Yeah, so
Are there little Lego cartridges?
Yeah, I got to build one for the Mario game and one for the Zelda game, and you can take them out,
Sweet.
Put them in, and those lenticular screens can be swapped out too. It's so cool.
How big is it compared to an original Game Boy DMG?
It's been a very long time since I held one, but I believe it's either the same size or at least roughly the same size.
Yeah, the original Game Boy was a bit of a chunker.
Yes.
in the technical terms.
Yes.
It's always amazing to me. In my head, I remember that the DMG screen was, let's be frank, kind of garbage. Yeah. And in my head, the later Game Boy Advance screens were much, much better. But when I see a Game Boy Advance screen now, and I see how small it is and how washed out the colors are, and I'm just, again, amazed at what we thought was cutting edge technology.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when, having a backlight was revolutionary because it used to be, is the room dark? Well, you can't see what you're doing. Sorry.
The DMG was much better at that than the Game Boy Advance, though.
Yes, Game Boy Advance.
The DMG and the Game Boy Color, the lighting was much more permissive. And if I remember correctly, I didn't even have any lighting peripherals for my DMG or my Game Boy Color. I just accepted that, I needed the right combination of direct sunlight or it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Whereas the Game Boy Advance, before the SP came out, it was a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, I have all these memories, and this is probably a fairly common memory from this generation, but memories of holding my Game Boy in my hands while I'm in the car, going somewhere at night with my family, and then every time we go under a light, oh, and hold the screen up so I can see it quickly. Oh, so silly.
I had strong pressure from my parents not to engage in such activities where other people are around. And
Mm.
so thus, of course, I am utterly ill-equipped for the contemporary digital age, where it is, I think, inappropriately, but considered perfectly polite to be on your phone 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
But alas.
Alas.
So you have the Lego NES,
Yes.
you have the Lego Game Boy DMG. There's also, I believe, a Lego Genesis pad, which I assume you are not going to get because you are not a Genesis person.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that existed. That's really cool, though.
It does. There are also these really cool Genesis dioramas that come packaged as like an enlarged Genesis game box that open up. And then there are these like little scenes from video games. They've got a whole bunch, including a Street Fighter one. Those look really cool, but you don't really build them as much. Those are just more display things
Okay.
that come pre-assembled, I believe.
That sounds adorable, though.
I'm just wondering what's next, if there's going to be anything else from the collaboration between Lego and Nintendo.
Honestly, part of me says, oh, I hope so because they're so fun. And the other part of me says, no, I don't need more. I don't need more of these. But if it comes out, I will probably buy it. So, it's bad. I don't have any self-control.
I don't know if the I don't need any more of these has much weight in your household, Caitlin. No offense.
It's fair. It's fair.
What if they came up with a Lego SNES? Would you want such a thing?
Absolutely. I would
Okay,
not
well, there
even
we
think
go.
about it for a second. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that you were a DMG person. I would have thought that you were too young to be a DMG person.
Yeah, I mean, when my brothers had one first, and eventually I ended up having it. I don't know if I just stole theirs or if we got multiples, but 2 older brothers, I think, helps.
Well, I'm very glad you had fun putting it together. How many pieces were involved in the Lego DMG?
Great question. There were 421 pieces.
Oh my goodness, just for a little slab of gray? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the other one, the Nintendo was, the Nintendo was significantly larger in many respects. But that one was, 3 times the size, maybe bigger. I don't know. Anyway.
All right. Good for you. You done made something.
I did. That's probably part of why it feels so good. It's like, I made something with my hands. It's like the same thing that people get out of carpentry and stuff, except, it's probably a little bit more, there's more involved there. But I'm not equipped to be able to just go out there and make a table, so I can, buy a Lego set and do that instead.
Sure.
IKEA does not count. Okay. So with that, I think we can move on to our gaming opinions on old school funware segment, what we call GOOF, with Mother 3. As I said earlier, Mother 3 was voted on by our patrons. Yeah, so we gave it a try. We ended up using, I believe, popular fan translation ROM for it, because this game, or Mother 3, never came out in US. Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
It never came out in English at all. This
English,
is the fan translation by Jeff Mann and Tomato, implementing a couple of hardware improvements done during the Italian translation by Lorenzone. And this too has been somewhat irregularly updated. We're now on version 1.13. So this was originally published by Brownie Brown and HAL Laboratory in 2006 for the Game Boy Advance. This is very near the end of the Game Boy Advance cycle. Many publishers had already started working on the DS. And the Mother series in Japan is known as Earthbound in North America, although we only have the first Earthbound game in North America. Did you ever play Earthbound?
No, that is somehow one that just slid right by me.
Okay.
I didn't know it existed even until quite a bit later.
Well, my general disinterest in JRPGs was in full effect at this period of time, having come off of Final Fantasy 2/4. And so I skipped Earthbound with reckless abandon and put it in the same category as Chrono Trigger as stuff I don't care about. But who knows? Maybe I'll want to go back to it and investigate it because Chrono Trigger has been a massive hit with me in middle age. But frankly, my experiences with Mother 3 don't necessarily mean that I might be inclined to do that. Anyway, so this is a straightforward turn-based JRPG. The setting is what sets it apart, though. Mother 3 is a kind of contemporary setting. It's not a high fantasy setting. I say contemporary, but the milieu in which it's situated is kind of somewhat more primitive technologically, but it is nonetheless a contemporary setting. It's kind of an idyllic, pastoral kind of pre-industrial technology, but nonetheless contemporary setting. So kind of like a fable in a lot of ways, like a 20th
Yeah.
century fable.
Yeah.
And it is seeking to be about some pretty heavy themes, stuff like grief and tyranny and corruption, the corrupting effects of technology. And that is one of the reasons why it has maintained a dedicated fan base. There is a huge amount of enthusiasm for Mother 3 in particular, not just amongst our patrons and not just amongst the fan community that has made this one of the most widely downloaded fan translations of any game, but it's been re-released several times in Japan on several different formats. And a lot of people love themselves some Mother 3. And my foremost question for you, Caitlin, is, are you among those people?
I would say I'm not among those people, but I'm not among those people. I really feel that I need to give Mother 3 some more time, and I admittedly did not give it as much time as I would have liked. So, yeah, I've been enjoying the story so far. There's been a couple of things that have taken me aback a little bit. So, I don't know if more video games from this era had some questionable stuff that just got taken out for, North American audiences before. But there was the character Reggie, who I thought rather looked like, not necessarily acted like a little bit, but rather looked like a racist caricature of a Jamaican man.
Yep.
Then the Magypsies they're a whole lot. And as soon as I came across them, I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I've seen a few reasons why maybe this never made it to North America.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are scattered reports here and there about why Mother 3 wasn't translated.
Yeah.
In my limited experience, claims as to why something wasn't localized, it's never one reason. It's like a constellation of a variety of reasons, all of them filtering down to, we thought we could make more money doing something else.
Absolutely.
Largely speaking.
Yeah.
Like, I remember back during the PS1 days, I was very, very disappointed that Tobal number 2, which is a relatively obscure fighting game, wasn't localized. This was actually the fighting game that had the character designs by Akira Toriyama. So that was, kind of like my my preview for Chrono Trigger. And the first one was localized. It, in fact, sold very, very well because it had the first publicly available demo for Final Fantasy VII packaged in with it.
Yes.
But anyway,
of course.
I was always told, I read in two different sources at the time, that Tobal 2 couldn't be localized because the dialogue boxes were formatted in such a way that they couldn't get the text to work. Anyway, that didn't strike me as particularly plausible at the time.
Okay.
And now that there is a publicly available fan translation of Tobal 2, it seems very, very implausible now, too.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it was hugely laborious and they had to resize a whole bunch of dialogue boxes and they're like, why are we doing this? But it certainly seemed like a nonsense explanation. And there's a lot of racist and questionable stuff that gets translated and
That's true.
ported with no comment whatsoever. Need I remind you that Persona 5 still has several scenes of gay panic humor right there in the main campaign. So I don't know if a Nintendo executive in 2006 was like, gee, I don't know about whether the Roma people and the people of the Caribbean are going to accept these character representations here. Maybe we need to stow it. So
That's fair.
you could well be right. I just don't know. But I tripped across the presentation of the pseudo-Roma as well as Reggie as well. I thought it was a little strange. That having been said, they do a pretty good job of populating their village with distinct looking and even distinct sounding characters. I'm not going to defend Reggie, but the rest of them are really good. It's just, most of the time, we joked about it even when talking about Brave Fencer Musashi, most of the time when you hit the first village, it's a huge slog. The proportion of people who nope out at the first village in JRPGs has got to be pretty high. But most of the first chapter, like the first few hours of Mother 3, is pretty much all in and around this village. And it didn't feel that bad because people looked different and sounded different. And they really put an effort into populating the village with side characters that made it not boring. And I really appreciated that effort.
I appreciated that too. And I liked that they didn't all just feel like, those NPCs that you talk to in JRPGs and you'll never talk to them again because they're not a character. They are a vessel through which you will learn some information and then never speak to again. Versus this actually felt like a town of people who all know Flint, and I enjoyed how, some of them would join your party to varying degrees of usefulness. The first guy who joins you just panics the entire time and never does anything useful that I could see.
Yep.
Even the little boy that joins you at some point will throw a rock at the enemy every now and then or give you some healing. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cute. I like that you have, the actual party members that will join your party and give them commands versus, the other people who are following you around will just try to do something or maybe be more concerned about their back hurting while you're fighting a mecha dragon. Who knows?
Yeah, the core story of Mother 3 is about this family. So there's Flint, Hinawa, their 2 sons, and the dog, all of whom you're allowed to name. For those of you who are watching this episode on YouTube and seeing my gameplay footage, you might notice that at various prompts, I hesitate for a while before invariably selecting don't care for each of them. Ask me to name one person, and maybe I'll come up with something. But if you're going to ask me to name all these people, I'm gonna just go to the defaults pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then they start getting into some other questions, which I actually thought were kind of cute. One of them I very much then became disappointed about. They ask you what your favorite food is, and yes. I actually had some difficulty. I thought about that long and hard. A favorite food, I'm not sure. So I just named the favorite thing that I make.
Okay.
The thing that I like eating the most that I make myself, and that is Doria, and it's a Japanese dish, so I figured, well, it's Washoku, technically speaking, which is not Japanese, whatever. So I thought that was appropriate for the game.
Mm-hmm.
I regretted that a little bit, because there's this sequence where the mother is missing, yes. And everyone is just saying, we need to go find her so she can make us some more Doria, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah!
Hold on. Slow down a bit, random NPC. You mean to tell me that this woman who is missing in the wilderness, we are going to find her and then immediately bring her to the kitchen so she can make you Doria?
Yeah.
I don't know whether this is more misogynist or sociopathic, but it's definitely something. And so that was a bit strange. Part of me wished I'd named a food that I didn't like in the context, so it was just weird.
Yeah.
Did you have the same response to that sequence?
Absolutely. I was taken aback when they were like, man, we have to find her, because I don't know what I would do if I couldn't get some more of her wonderful fondue. It was like...
You picked fondue, or was that the default?
I picked fondue. I have no idea if there's a default.
I hate fondue. Oh my goodness,
oh my God.
I hate it so much.
It's a pot of cheese. So what is there to dislike about that?
First of all, it is typically made with wine, and I do not like the taste of wine. Secondly, it is a whole bunch of... I love melted cheese, but it's like a laborious way to eat melted cheese, and maintaining the right temperature is a real pain. I'm not a fan of fondue. I actually had a very embarrassing and painful situation where fondue came up exogenously in a conversation.
Uh-huh.
Someone asked me... I have this reputation for volunteering my opinions. Maybe it's because I have 2 podcasts where I share my opinions about things, but...
Maybe.
Someone asked me directly, what do you think about fondue? And I'm like, I hate fondue. It's terrible. And little did I know that at that table was my sister, who had acquired for me a fondue set as a gift. And that, of course, made me feel like the worst human being on earth. But anyway, setting all that aside.
Yeah.
I can't tell if it was meant to be a gag, because I think that's a good segue into the humor of Mother 3.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I can tell when they're trying to make a joke. Most of the time, I find the joke on somewhere between tolerable to tiresome.
Mm-hmm.
Seldom do I find it amusing, because Mother 3's style of humor is very much into repetition.
Yeah.
They're going to say something that is kind of maybe weird or quirky, and they're going to drive it into the ground. And that is the style of humor. At one point, an NPC offers you a slightly dirty and not very tasty cookie.
Mm-hmm.
And every time that character speaks, and every time the cookies are addressed, they're addressed in exactly those words verbatim.
Yep.
Over and over and over again. It's like, okay, I get the bit. I got the bit the first time. I'm still not particularly amused by this bit.
Yes.
So maybe the bit with finding Haniwa and making her make the dish is supposed... Like, maybe we're supposed to think that they're being monsters and that's funny? I don't know.
I don't know either. It mostly just seemed really tasteless that there's, this woman and children, and not just the random woman and children. Our characters, wife and kids, are missing, and we're looking for them, and we're really worried about that food that she makes. Like, come on.
I will tell you the exact moment when I noped out of Mother 3.
Okay.
It was such rapid juxtaposition. There's a scene where it starts with an NPC telling somebody that they have good news and bad news.
Oh my god. Yep, I know what you're talking about.
And they decide that they're going to lead with the good news. Now, what follows is it's very clearly intended as a joke, and it is probably the most tasteless thing I've ever seen in a video game. I mean that sincerely. This is a whole bunch of made up people. It wasn't even tasteless in the sense of like having caricatures of the Roma or caricatures of the Caribbean. It was just completely tasteless.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's better in the original. I don't know if it's better in a different cultural context. But I was genuinely put off by that attempt at humor. It was really gross. But what then follows is an exquisitely animated, very plausible, emotional response.
Yeah.
And I thought it was extraordinarily well done.
Me too.
And it was right on the heels of this really badly done joke. And I'm like, okay, Mother 3, I can tell that sometimes you're playing with live ammo, and sometimes you're even going to do well with that, but this tone is so uneven. And not only is it the case that you have navigated the tonal inconsistencies bad, it's that some of the tones are really bad, and so I cannot trust you with my time. Did you have the same reaction to that sequence?
Not quite as negative, but I hated it. I did hate it. I was like... It's a very serious sequence all leading up to this, other than the comment about the food and this terrible joke. And
yeah,
I was shocked. Like, it almost felt like shock humor or something, because I wasn't even expecting him to say the words that he said for the bad news.
Yeah.
Like, I thought surely the bad news would be less bad than the news that he delivered, because no one would actually do that.
By virtue of the terrible joke. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. It was, I genuinely hated that. And then I genuinely loved the scene that immediately followed that you already mentioned. I was like, wow, like, Mother 3 is handling this in a way that I've never seen it handled before in a video game. And that is super cool. But yes, that tasteless joke right before really, I don't know. That was a lot.
It was so jarring. The immediate juxtaposition of the lowest of the low and the highest of the highs in terms of quality of presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me angry, actually. It genuinely upset me. I was already upset by virtue of how terrible the joke was. And then what follows is like, oh, but you're clearly able to do genuinely beautiful sequences.
Yeah.
And it was executed so well, both in terms of writing and staging, and the graphical presentation of everything was so good. But it's like, I just can't, I'm not going to let you do this to me. I can't trust you to have any kind of consistent quality, Mother 3. And so that was it. After that, I was done.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I think that emotional scene is the thing that's made me be like, okay, I think I would like to keep going, but they better not pull that crap, like, again, right?
Yeah, I hear you. So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay, I guess.
Sure.
For one thing, it doesn't really change much about turn-based RPGs. It's a very, very straightforward implementation of turn-based JRPGs, with one exception, and that is the weird rhythm game element. Did you not encounter the rhythm game element, Caitlin?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, well, because this is just on the cusp of tutorializing, they never bothered to tutorialize it, and there's no English manual available. This is just the kind of thing you have to pick up from the fan community. Did you ever notice that on rare occasions, your character would hit an enemy more than once?
Yeah.
That's the rhythm game.
I thought that was random.
Well, I tried very hard. I knew that there was a rhythm game element.
Yeah.
It was about the timing of the button presses. And it felt awfully random to me, but then again, I'm really bad with rhythm games. And there's a small amount of latency in Android emulation, and I was emulating this on an Anbernic RG477M, which is a lovely device, by the way. But although that latency is often not noticeable to people like me, that slight extra bit of latency can ruin rhythm game requirements. I don't know. It felt awfully arbitrary at the end of the day. Fortunately, unlike something like this is not Clair Obscur Expedition 33. This is not going to be the difference between success and failure.
Yeah.
This is going to be the difference between doing 45 damage in your attack and doing 49 damage in your attack, right? It's literally like a 10 to 20% difference if you maximize the rhythm elements. The first hit does the overwhelming majority of the damage. It's just that's the only thing that differentiates it from otherwise being an incredibly bog standard turn-based JRPG combat thing.
Yeah. That's a funny idea.
It's kind of your thing. I would be somewhat disappointed if you had like read up on it and watched tutorial videos and like then you know.
You're right.
Because I love you, Caitlin, I want you to always be Caitlin and just Caitlin it up.
Yep, this is my brand.
The one thing that I found very strange, though, is how ugly the fight sequences are when compared to the rest of the game. Mother 3 is pretty attractive and well animated, and it's got these lovely character models, like we were talking about before, injecting a lot of personality into a lot of the characters. But then when the fight starts, all you have are numbers, a pretty static image of an enemy, and a weird psychedelic wavy background going on.
I was just thinking psychedelic is exactly the word that I would use to describe that background.
Yeah, well, we see this exquisite sprite work going on in Mother 3, but what if the battle sequences looked more like a lava lamp? It's like, okay. And the main characters, they just pop their heads up when they're doing their thing. Mm-hmm. Honestly, the early Pokemon games have better looking battle sequences than this. Like the really early ones from the early 90s where nothing was animated and people just flashed a little bit. There at least you saw the character doing things and there were some animated effects. Honestly, I was quite surprised. It's not even that they look terrible, it's just they look terrible when compared to the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's strange that the design of the battle scenes seems like an afterthought when you spend a large portion of the game in a battle.
It's unusual. If the battles had received even half as much attention as the visual design of the main game, I think it could have been quite impressive. Maybe they ran out of resources on the Game Boy Advance. I don't know. But it's just it's a little bit of a jarring tonal inconsistency. And now there's a jarring visual inconsistency. It made me not want to explore the battle opportunities. And it just made me all the more inclined to tune out and just mash the A button during the entire thing. And let's be fair. Even enthusiasts of most turn-based JRPGs must acknowledge that you're always on the precipice of having people do that anyway. So you don't want to give players more excuse.
Yeah. In Mother 3, I actually spent a little more time than I usually do exploring the menus. Mostly I like to say, like, okay, I realize that Flint has this, I forget what they call it, but, you know, that special ability section. I tried his 2 attack ones first, and they both missed, and I was like, okay, well, I don't have time for you to be using a whole turn missing, so I'm never going to touch those again. But then he had one that increased his attack power and increased defense. The defense one I found incredibly useful. I have no idea if that just lasts for the whole battle. It kind of seemed to, but I don't know. But being able to do that was really helpful for me, especially with some of the more challenging battles. In general, I didn't think that Mother 3 was too difficult, but the fact that your inventory is so ridiculously small, especially when you're only limited to one character. And, like, I'm going around, I'm doing the normal RPG thing. I see a thing, I pick it up. So then I have 6 nuts in my inventory, which only heal for 5 hit points. And every time you kill a monster that drops something, it's like, hey, do you want to pick this up? And I can say yes. Or do I want to, hey, this dropped. Do you want to throw something away in your bags in order to make room for it? And you have to say yes or no. And then it's like, by the way, are you okay losing this item forever? Yes or no? And it's like, I already said I'm good with it. So the inventory was rough.
Relatedly, this is an incredibly minor pet peeve, but we talk a lot on this show about the extent to which games respect your time.
Yeah.
Did Mother 3, anytime you get an item after a battle, need to spread that out over 3 lines of dialogue?
I know.
The thing you just killed dropped a present. Somebody opened a present. This thing was inside, and this person took it. It's like, could you just say that A took Y? Like, you could just jump to that.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was like 3 screens of dialogue in the original, or if that's a consequence of the translation or what, but it really started grating on my nerves. Because again, you're always on the precipice of just having battles feel repetitive in JRPG context. You need to find a way to spruce it up, to keep your engagement, to keep things moving at a good clip. And I will acknowledge that at the very least Mother 3 seems to be closer to the sort of Chrono Trigger axis of you don't have to grind.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that at least. And there are no random encounters and you can run past people, sure. Like, that's great.
You could try to run past people, but then
you could try to run past
your
people,
little
sure.
straggler behind you is gonna, get bumped into by the stupid vulture, and you're gonna have a fight anyway.
Sure, but in 2006, this was table stakes, right? We were already at the point where purely random encounters were not a good idea, and people were already doing some really interesting experimentational stuff with turn-based battles. And Mother 3 is kind of a little bit of a throwback in some areas. Mm. With all this said, you might be going back to it. It's in kind of your back burner pile, as it were.
Yeah, so right before this, I was attempting to defeat a boss, which I did, and then it did one last attack, which did 250 damage, and I only have 150 hit points. And there's the character I had with me apparently can save you from death, but only once, and that had already happened earlier in the fight. Anyway, I have to do the boss fight again, but I really wanted to see what Mother 3 was like after that boss fight, because it seemed like a bit of a pivot point for the family, at least. So yeah, I would like to play at least a bit more just to see, because I think that, I don't know, that scene of grief really was quite good, and I'm hoping that there's more really good storytelling, hopefully without the really crappy jokes immediately preceding.
There's a version of Mother 3 that makes me understand the praise that it gets. There's like a fan edit, a sort of psychological fan edit that probably exists in a lot of fans' heads that explains why Mother 3 is so praised. Like, I see these little bits and these little details, but honestly, I cannot get past the tonal and graphical inconsistency and how deeply off-putting a lot of the dialogue is.
Yeah, a part of it almost felt like they wanted to tell a serious story, but this is a video game and we can't be too serious and sad, so we need to make sure that we have some quirky, silly jokes, and I don't know.
I often get the vibe from something like this that this is the kind of thing that the author thought was super funny. I mean, there's evidence to suggest that the author's not alone. People talk about how Mother 3 is funny. I disagree, but that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, there's moments of humor that I never laughed, but moments of humor that I at least, I was like, oh, hee, that's cute, I guess. But I don't know, it doesn't seem worth ruining emotional moments. There's a time and a place.
To be entirely fair, some of the whimsy I did appreciate. Mm-hmm. I mean, Mother 3 opens with a couple of children playing with a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah.
And he was like a family friend.
That was so cute.
And that's cool. And you save your game by talking to a frog, and then the frog says, "Give my regards to the next frog you see," and there are these frogs all over the place. That's kind of cute too. I'm not blind to the whimsy.
Yeah.
It's just the attempts at actual humor is where I'm not on the same wavelength as Mother 3.
Yeah. Fair. Okay. With that, I think we can take a quick break for some ads, and we're back. Now we're going to be talking about our feature title.
I'm Your Beast was published by Strange Scaffold in 2024, and tells the story of Alphonse Harding, which is a solid name. Anybody named Alphonse, they're up to, they mean serious business. During the intro/tutorial, Alphonse Harding kind of snaps and decides to murder all his former colleagues at a kind of shadowy, made-up institute of wet work badasses. Hence, I am your beast. Alphonse says, "I am the person you made me into," and he proceeds to use all the things that he's been taught how to do to get revenge, kind of, sort of, self-defense. It's a messy melange of a whole bunch of different violent impulses going on here. Sometimes revenge, sometimes self-defense, sometimes recreational thrill killing. You're never really sure. It's complicated. This is a first-person action game where sometimes you're shooting, but you're often just running around, grabbing knives, throwing things, so forth. The structure is based on speedrunning. You're given a grade as to how well you completed the level. Based on how fast you were, you get time bonuses based on the manner in which you have murdered the various denizens of the particular level. And then you proceed on to the next. There are a variety of different challenge modes you can do. But I was more or less forced to stop by virtue of the structure of the story campaign. More on that later. And the designers describe it as a game of improvisational chaos. And the intent is to try to get you into the same sort of flow state that you might get in a lot of other quasi-speedrunning type games. Neon White is a great example of that. Crazy Taxi is another vaguely similar structure, again, where there's a time pressure, and there's this idea that the more you do during that time, you're under a time pressure in I Am Your Beast in the sense that you'll be graded at the end of the mission, not in the sense that you will literally run out of time and the mission will fail by virtue of that. So, in other words, it lets you discover that you failed the mission because you took to lime at the end of the mission, not in the middle of it. So I guess in that sense, that's one up on Crazy Taxi.
I actually did fail a mission because I ran out of time.
Oh.
I don't know exactly what that means. It only happened one time, but I was really, really taking my time on that level. I suspect
okay, never mind then.
Whenever the timer gets to the point where you would not get a grade, you fail. I'm not sure. If you would get an F.
So, what did you think of I'm Your Beast, Caitlin?
Okay, so I immediately got Neon White vibes, and I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, I can get behind this. And I kind of loved it. There were a couple things where like, okay, I don't love that. So, okay, Neon White, I think, really caters to the speedrunning design. Because when you redo a level, you get to see your ghosts. You get to see if you are ahead or behind of where you were before. They will also eventually, you can unlock hints that'll show you faster ways to go. So it makes it significantly easier to get a better time if you don't know how to get to that better time. I Am Your Beast, I didn't... So there were a handful of times where it's like, hey, in order to get to the next story mission, you need to get at least one more A. Or you need to do 3 more bonus objectives. For the most part, those weren't too bad. I hit one, however, that required me to get an S.
Ooh.
I decided that I was going to do the first level because surely that would be the easiest one. And maybe it is. I don't know. This is the only S that I ended up getting the entire time I played. I had to replay that level so many times because even I ended up beating the time required for S rank by 0.01 seconds.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, thank God, never doing that again. Because, yeah, as I've mentioned before in the past, like, speedrunning is not really my thing. But I was having enough fun with I Am Your Beast that I was like, okay, fine, I will try to go get a better score. But on some levels, that was rough.
So you basically enjoyed the running around, killing people, combat, power fantasy, action element of it all?
I think so, yeah. I had to not think about it too hard, honestly, because...
I'm not trying to psychoanalyze you. I'm not saying like that this represents that you have the deep-seated soul of a mass murderer or something. No, I just mean that your inclination to replay levels, your willingness to shave seconds off your time so as to get to the next gate-kept portion of content must, I think, imply that you were enjoying the fundamental gameplay loop of what was going on inside a level of I'm Your Beast.
I was, and I liked a little bit of creativity they got with what generally seemed like pretty budget, quote, cutscenes. I don't even want to call them cutscenes, because they're not scenes. They are, the camera very slowly just panning through the forest. You don't really see characters or anything. You just see trees. And then there's a voiceover with, like, the words from the voiceover appearing on the screen in a very stylized manner. I would hate to see what it would be like if I were colorblind, because there's never any indication who's talking except for their voices. And every now and then when 2 dudes are talking, they just kind of sound similar. So the only way I could tell that it was somebody else was the color of the text changing. But anyway, yeah, I enjoyed all of that enough, especially considering I think I got through the whole thing in hours, that it was okay. If I Am Your Beast had been longer, I doubt I would have been able to complete it.
Parenthetically, the cutscene system is described by the designers as, and I quote, innovative kinetic typography cutscene system, which is a fancy way of saying we put subtitles up as people say words.
Yes. Kinetic typography.
It was stylish.
Yeah.
It was stylish and stylized. I don't know if I'd call it innovative, and I don't know if I'd want to invent a new term, kinetic typography.
Yeah.
I have a fraught relationship with games that seek to judge me. All things being equal, I do not want my digital entertainment to be pointing out my shortcomings in this kind of way. It is one of the reasons why, despite the fact that I love beat-em-ups and I love a lot of adjacent action games, I have never enjoyed a Devil May Cry or Bayonetta or anything like that, because I feel like those games are constantly telling me that even though I'm finishing the level, I'm not doing it right.
Right.
And it's like, if you want me to do a thing, make me do the thing. Design a level for me that's hard. Most action games that I like, even the ones that are hard, the levels are hard, and if I do it, I do the thing.
Yeah.
Like, Returnal doesn't give me a monster to kill, and after I shoot it, say, but you used your special powers to kill the monster. That wasn't very impressive. No, Returnal's like, yeah, we threw a bunch at you and you survived. Good job.
Yeah, did it. Move on.
And it's one of the reasons why when we were reviewing Neon White, I was like, I am shocked that Neon White is willing to make me care about shaving off a few seconds of finishing this level. It was just the gameplay was so solid and the levels were short and well designed. I Am Your Beast was kind of on the verge for me while I was playing it. Here it was giving me C's and D's and tallying me up and saying like, well, you finished the level, but I'm like, okay, fine. I'm kind of enjoying it. The combat's okay. It's a little slippery, but it's not meant to be a finely honed shooter. It's supposed to be about improvised chaos. You're supposed to be running around, not really have a good sense of what's going on. Just things are flying at your face. You grab the pistol, you fire it dry, you throw it at a dude, you turn around, you climb a tree, you get a knife, etc., etc. It's going faster than you can really process it. It's trying to encourage a kind of a flow state. And I was kind of vibing with it in that flow state. And then it told me that if I wanted to play more story missions, I needed 2 A rankings. And I'm like, okay, I Am Your Beast. Let's see. So I went past and I looked through a mission where I'd gotten a B, because at that point I'd gotten no A rankings at all.
Yeah.
I replayed a B mission, and I did it worse than I did it the time before. Then I went to a different mission where I got a B, and I replayed that, and I did slightly better, but nowhere near well enough to get an A. And at that point, I parted ways with I Am Your Beast.
Yeah, that's understandable.
If it's going to stand there and say, oh, we've got more story missions, but you're not good enough to play them, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not. Bye. Uninstall.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all for how you feel about that. When I had to get the S, I could not have gotten an S without doing what I did, which was finding a YouTube video of somebody else getting an S rank.
Right.
And seeing exactly what they did and copying it.
Yeah.
I'm not a speed runner at heart. Don't make this more difficult than it has to be.
Yeah, which I would point out, for what it's worth, that particular vibe of you have to do everything exactly right, even to the point of making you have to look up to see how someone else did it, that is not the same page as improvisational chaos.
Yeah.
That is carefully planned rote repetition or emulation of a very particular style of gameplay.
I felt like getting A rank, you could probably manage that improvisational chaos at times. I don't know. Obviously, I only got the 1 S rank, and the S rank was on a level where there were very few enemies. Killing everything was the only thing you had to do. So maybe that made it more difficult to get an S rank. But my experience getting an S rank on that one made it so that, there's no way I want to try to get an S rank on anything else. And thankfully, I didn't have to. But it was... That was not fun. That's not how I wanted to spend my time.
And I was disappointed because I loved the intro level.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was firing on all cylinders. It was a great short tutorial. It implied that we were going to be having lots of fun of going from enemy to enemy in this improvised chaos way. In terms of gameplay, it actually it reminded me a lot of a real-time, more chaotic version of Super Hot.
Mm-hmm.
Like stunning enemies and grabbing their weapons and moving from weapon to weapon rapidly, enemy to enemy, and not getting outflanked and all those things. And I really liked Super Hot. I thought it was a really clever game. And I also really liked the presentation of the main character snapping.
Yeah.
Of what makes him snap, of what he decides to do in the face of snapping. And for what it's worth, again, tonally, I don't think that the game maintained that very well. Because suddenly in level 3, Alphonse is joking and it felt like as the game went on, he sort of morphed into vastly more traditional action movie protagonist rather than a fragile psyche that had been pushed too far.
Yeah, I think I can see that.
It's a minor thing because it's not really a plot-driven game. The cutscenes are brief. It's mostly about the action. And if I had been expecting a meditation on the trauma of being taught the tools of murder, that's quite frankly foolish of me and would not be the game's fault. It's just that I was hoping that it was going to keep with this overall theme of, parenthetically, I Am Your Beast is a brilliant title, of a deeply wounded man rather than a quipping action hero, right? It's like the transition between Silent Hill 2 and 3. Silent Hill 2 is of a broken man navigating a broken world, and by Silent Hill 3, we have a character who's issuing Buffy the Vampire-style quips at bosses. You can do those things, but if you're expecting one and you get the other, you're apt to be disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I thought the conversations between levels, I thought the voice acting...
The kinetic typography.
Yes, the kinetic... I thought the voice acting was really good.
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, so I think that it helped. The way that Alphonse spoke, I think helped to humanize him a little bit, helping to make it so that he wasn't only a, covert operations initiative, like, killing machine. Like, you can...
Sure.
He has regret, has, trauma. He doesn't want to have to keep doing this. But he's very effective when forced to keep doing it, I guess.
True, that is the game, after all.
Sadly, I think you probably didn't get to what was my favorite part of I Am Your Beast. But did you get to start talking to Byron?
We had one conversation.
Okay. Byron...
I tried.
...grew on me a lot.
I would have been happy to play more missions of I Am Your Beast. I would have been happy to keep getting C's and D's. But I Am Your Beast doesn't want to let me play that way, so here we are.
I hate that.
And some people don't want the kind of gatekeeping that I want. Some people nope out of Returnal, they nope out of Elden Ring, they nope out of Hollow Knight, they nope out of hard games, where the levels are just difficult, and it is difficult to progress to the next scene or stage. And they would much rather have, I assume, the kind of vibe from Neon White or I'm Your Beast, where finishing the level is pretty easy, you just gotta finish it in the right way. But that is exactly the opposite of the kind of level design that I like. Yeah. And I just don't like feeling judged that way.
Yeah, and Neon White felt like it wanted to help you along the way. Allowing you to see your ghost, hints of how to complete the level faster. Versus I Am Your Beast, which is just like, I don't know, look it up on YouTube if you're having trouble, scrub.
Frankly, the thresholds that you need to meet in order to just progress to the next set of missions in Neon White is so much lower than the floor in I Am Your Beast. I mean, part of that, I think, is just because Neon White has dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of levels.
Yeah.
And also Benny's past that. So if you just want to get to the next stage, you can do that. If you want to get all of the Bennies, well, then you're going to have to do your homework and then start doing the kinds of tricks that you're talking about maybe watching a video, maybe reading a guide to try to figure out how to do the thing, and then you need to execute it exactly right. But that's fine, because that's just the elevated level of difficulty.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that it lets you pick.
I don't have the option in I'm Your Beast. That's all just table stakes. And again, Neon White is a supremely good example of excellent game design.
Yeah.
Both structurally and in missions, so... I've actually been playing a little more Neon White. I Am Your Beast said, no more for you, and I'm like, okay, I'll go play this better game.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you're getting to play a little bit more Neon White. I still need to get back and finish it. Played a little bit of it a short while back, but I need to get there. So yeah, that was I Am Your Beast. And now finally we can get back to shameless hyping of upcoming titles, what we call Shout. Mark, what are you shouting out for us today?
October is going to be jam-packed with releases that I have been looking forward to. And here's a title that's coming out in November. So let's hope that by some miracle... I'm able to turn my thoughts to new games in November. There's going to be a new release by Heart Machine, which is the design studio that did Hyper Light Drifter. And unlike Hyper Light Breaker, the pseudo-sequel to that aforementioned title, this is not going to have an early access purgatory before full release. It is going to be releasing for real in November. It is called Possessors. This is a 2D style side-scrolling Metroidvania thing with lots of really cool hand-done art, and I am looking forward to seeing what it's like.
Awesome. I mean, the art looks amazing from the Steam page, so I hope it ends up.
At the moment, that's more or less all I know about it. So,
Well, I'm a sucker for good art, so.
What about you, Caitlin?
I am going to be shouting out Grave Seasons. Grave Seasons is a narrative farming sim where you can farm and romance, and also you need to find out which one of the villagers is a supernatural serial killer. I just think that's such a great concept.
I have to see if anywhere on the Steam page if they use the word cozy.
That's a good question. I don't know.
No, I see the word unsettling.
Okay, that's good.
I see the word terrifying. I see the word deadly.
All right.
No cozy. We have finally found the non-cozy farming sim.
Awesome. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention, you have escaped from prison, apparently, and you're just trying to settle in and not make waves, and then, supernatural serial killer time. You apparently can also romance the serial killer if you want. I don't think I'll be doing that, but we'll see.
Apparently there's also a fair amount of breaking and entering involved.
Yeah, I really hope that it's everything that I imagine it to be. There's no release date yet, so we'll see.
I am perversely intrigued.
Maybe this will be the farming sim that you play?
Maybe. The developer's name is Perfect Garbage.
Nice.
This is truly the work of a twisted imagination, and my hat's off.
Okay. And with that, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of All My Best Friends Are Digital. If you'd like to support us, you can do so on Patreon at patreon.com/ampfad. And we hope you all have a wonderful week.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to get in touch, you can reach us at allmybestfriendsaredigital@gmail.com. Hope to see you again soon.